Hello and welcome back. I just want to finish off the alternative indie section of my CD collection by doing a recap of N to Ys. I finished on the Ys and it was with Yola Tango, so please check that video out. This is a N to Y recap of recommended CDs, but I'm also going to include in the description the A to M's as well, so you get the full picture and my recommended CDs for alternative indie. I'll rush through this pretty quickly because there's a lot to look at. So the National Boxer is the one I pulled out as one from the National to certainly check out, but there are other albums that would be worth looking at. It's always tricky trying to get with, especially with black ones, trying not to get the light disrupting it. But there you go, Boxer. And Neutral Milk Hotel, I do recommend that. Jeff Mangan's voice may not be to everybody's taste, but you couldn't really have an alternative indie collection without Neutral Milk Hotel, Aeroplane Over the Sea. Just have a look at the album cover and have a listen to it. See if you like it. And next, Papa M. I have a few Papa M albums, so I did want to recommend Papa M, and I'm going with Whatever Mortal. So this is a really lovely album worth having in alternative indie CD collection. That's my children in the background if you can hear them. The Postal Service, so Give Up. This is quintessential alt indie music. Not too recent, but it's sort of like not in the 90s, it really is in the 2000s, and I think it just caught the imagination of a generation. So the Postal Service is worth having a look if you've never seen them, or listened to them, I should say. And of course, Radiohead. So I did a profile on Radiohead. It was the first time I had a lot of albums, and I thought I'll look at Radiohead more closely. I would start with the Bends. That catches their 90s sound. Then, of course, there's OK Computer, which is really probably their biggest album in terms of generally being popular. But I really did like Kid A, so, you know, I would recommend also getting Kid A. And there's probably a bunch of other. Moonshaped Pool is very good. In Rainbows is very good. I may have In Rainbows around here somewhere. Oh, no, I don't. I need to go and get that one. So just hold on a second. I got this on vinyl. I got the special edition set. But this one, you can get it on CD, and it's amazing. So next, REM. That was another band that I went in and I looked at them a little more closely in terms of the albums I had. And then they're another band that I looked at and I thought, oh, I could actually get a few more albums by REM. So I might start investigating some of their earlier stuff. But I recommend Green. I did like Document. I do have Document for an early album from the 80s. But I would recommend Green and Automatic for the People. But I'm sure you've heard of REM. These are just my two recommendations for a alternative indie CD collection. And then moving right along, I've got to just sort of have a look at what I'm looking at here. The Shins, Wincing the Night Away, I highly recommend that. So I do have 3 albums by the Shins, and this is what my wife introduced me to. So I had heard of them, but I didn't have any albums. So this is courtesy of my wife, so that's great. We've merged our CD collections, and I recommend this from the Shins. And I also, even though I only have a couple of albums, Slow Dive, the self-titled album came out not too long ago, and it was about 20 years after their last album, which was in the 90s. So they brought this one out, and it's just incredible, in my opinion. I really love it. Slow Dive, self-titled Slow Dive. So get that album as well. And then, and these are all the sort of digipacks I'm going through. I had a lot of Smog as well, and there's more than this album I'd love to recommend, but I'm just going to recommend this one as a place to start. A River Ain't Too Much to Love. So check out Smog, check out this album, see if you like Smog, and get more albums. Hold up, did I just miss out on putting in the Stone Roses? I almost left out the Stone Roses as one of the quintessential alt indie bands, in my opinion, one of the best albums ever produced. Stone Roses' self-titled album, The Stone Roses. Now we're on to Sufjan Stevens. So I have a lot of recommendations from Sufjan Stevens. In fact, as a fan, I would recommend everything that he's put out, except for one album that I did. Well, it wasn't as bad as I thought when I listened to it, but I didn't like it as much as his other albums. So I would definitely look at Michigan, Greetings from Michigan, the Great Lakes State. And sort of a companion album to that is Illinois. I think it's just called Illinois. I refer to it as Come On Feel the Illinois, but I think it's usually listed just as Illinois. And of course, now we get on to Digipack with Sufjan Stevens, and I would recommend Age of Odds. So even though it's spelled A-D-Z, Age of Odds is how it's pronounced, and this is a concept album and worth checking out. It came after those two. I'm doing these slightly in order. I think I am getting them in order. But of course, aside from Age of Odds, a big album for him that I think had a lot of popular press is Carrie and Lowell. So for those who didn't like a lot of the in-between stuff like Age of Odds, Carrie and Lowell, when that dropped, it was very popular and people really liked it, and it was amazing. I went and saw the concert for that. And finally, I do want to mention the Ascension. That's fairly recent, and so for Sufjan Stevens fans, I would recommend checking out the Ascension as being another solid album by him. Where am I up to here? Okay, Vampire Weekend. I figured I would just recommend Modern Vampires of the City, but I really love Vampire Weekend. I love everything they do, so I'm a fan of theirs as well, and I've got all 4 of their albums. But if you were to choose one, this is probably it. Other than this, though, I do want to recommend Father of the Bride. That's another really good album from Vampire Weekend. That's their most recent. So check that one out as well. Yep, there is a lot to get through, but I'm nearly there. Ween. So Ween's a little bit mercurial, can be a little bit sort of on the comical side with some of their albums, and therefore not something that you sort of tread into lightly. There's a warning about language. But I think the Mollusk is really good at doing sort of sea shanties and sort of, it's a concept album to do with sort of seafaring, nautical thematic tracks, and yeah, some of them are humorous, some of them quite funny, some of them a little bit confronting, but generally beautifully produced and great musicianship. I'm just trying to get the angle right. So check out Ween, the Mollusk. Now White Stripes, they've got a lot of good albums, but I'm just going to recommend Elephant, but it's up to you. Check out, if you know the White Stripes, then you know what you're in for, but I really like Elephant. And of course, it's got Seven Nation Army, so it's got really one of their biggest hits in there. But I do appreciate Jack White and what he does. So, yep, check out the White Stripes. And I did want to put in, shout out to the Walkman, because I did have 3 albums. I do have 3 albums. It hasn't changed. I still have 3 albums. And this is the one to get if you're interested in having a listen to a garage band that sort of took second place to a lot of the ones that were popular at the time, including the Strokes. I think they're a better band than the Strokes, so check them out. Bows and Arrows is the album I'd recommend. And I think that's everything except for going back to Yo La Tengo. And I thought I'd recommend 3 Yo La Tengo, and that one is And Then Nothing Turns Itself Inside Out. And then Nothing Turned Itself Inside Out. Sometimes I struggle with remembering the exact title, but check the description. That one's more on the mellow side, but my other 2 favorite is I Can Hear the Heart Beat as One. And I did say that when I was talking, or beating as one. See, I was bound to get that wrong. I Can Hear the Heart Beating as One. And this one, it's another one I have to read out. I Am Not Afraid of You and I Will Beat Your Ass. And that is another really good Yo La Tengo album. So that's it. Those are all my recommendations. See them attached to the ATM recommendations. A to M. That just sounded weird for a second. And that I don't know the exact number, but that's my recommendations for alternative indie CD collections. Albums worth having because they're fantastic all the way through. They're albums that you can listen to in their entirety. Either they tell a story, they have a narrative, or just the tracks one after another, in my opinion, are worth listening to. Nothing to skip through. I mean, that's the whole point of owning albums, is that you want to listen to them and you're not trying to just pick the hits. So there you go. That's closing off the whole alternative indie part of my CD collection. Next is blues. But before that, I might be playing around with some videos and experimenting with editing. So there might be a few narrative videos in the mix before I get to blues. So hope to see you back soon. I am going to keep going with my CD collection. There's a lot to get through. We've only just sort of scratched the surface. I've also been buying new CDs since I've looked at my alternative indie section, so I've got more to add to that, so I might just have to look at those and then come back around and just sort of point a few new albums out. And that's it. So thanks again for those of you who have subscribed. I really hope that some of you will subscribe.
I want to draw something.
Okay, my son wants to draw something, so I better free the table and let him get on with it. All right, good seeing you. See you next time.